You're going to get through this.
Easy for listening. I was able to do it.
I'm not a great lover of cats. That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Not me. That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you
Hello and welcome to One-on-One Shadowboxing, have your say. Today at the WTV studios I got one guest for the start, and he is
Brother Francis Mary.
Brother Francis Mary, and he is on a run. But he was here before twice, and with a different name. Why are you changing your name?
Well,
brother?
My name was changed. Just very quickly, last April, the 31st, when I received the habit formally and I was consecrated into religious life formally, I took a new name. And many of us do in religious life. We take the names often of our founders. And I took the name of St. Francis as the founder of our religious community back in the 13th century.
And why
Mary for the Mother of God.
So what keeps you busy, brother, these days?
Well, where I'm focused at the moment is in building our religious community, the Franciscans of the Cross. So we're looking for other...
In Fremantle?
In Fremantle. So we're looking for men and women to join us to take the habit of a Franciscan, either as a brother or as a nun. And with that community which we're forming, we're then running the charity, which is called the Lay Companions of St. Francis. So I'm busy with the charity at the moment. And part of our work in the charity has been the formation and setting up of the multi-faith gatherings, which we now have every month on the last Sunday of each month.
But you used to start that before.
We've been doing it now. We're moving into our second year.
Yes.
Rabbi Sheryl and I run the multi-faith gatherings, and we've had now quite a few hundred people come through. And at each gathering, we have an average of 20 people, and we have 3 speakers. And the 3 speakers represent each of the different traditions or faiths, or, you know, from Aboriginal people sharing Dreamtime stories to Jewish people sharing their journey, their personal journey, through to imams from the Islamic tradition or the Muslim faith sharing their orthodoxy, their journey, you know.
You know what I heard from Aboriginals?
From who?
From Aboriginals.
Oh,
they think, Aboriginals, they're saying, that's what I heard last week, they're saying, we're living in dream time. They're living in real time.
Oh, yeah.
And the white people who came here, we're living in dream time because we think we took over this continent. So we're dreaming, but they're still living in here in reality. What do you think about that?
Great. Yeah, maybe. So the Aboriginal community is dreaming that the white community is still here?
No, the whites dreaming this is their country.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
And the Aboriginals still think this is their country. So they
Can it both be our country?
No.
No.
One is the dream, one is the reality.
Oh, okay.
One is forced on reality.
Yeah.
And it's dreaming us a reality.
Yeah.
So that's the new, I don't think it's new philosophy, but that's, I think,
interesting.
First time heard that myself, to manifest as a sort of statement and philosophy. And if you're going back and you're thinking, you know, they're spirits, because they got their own spirits, which is also here continuously in the past 60,000 so years, and they just find these strange white people around who dreaming in the same land. This is their land, which is never be, I don't think. Anyway, that's just about what.
But the reality is we're both here, aren't we? We're here together in this land, living.
That's the
reality.
We are here, but they also say the reality is we are guests of them, and they are here to look after us. But they couldn't do that forever.
And maybe we're all guests in this world. Maybe we're all guests here.
If you really want to open up this debate, probably
maybe we're all
guests.
We're all guests living on this earth.
On Earth,
and perhaps because we're guests, we should perhaps treat this earth a little bit more loving, a little bit more kindly.
Whose guests we are then if we are all guests on Earth?
Maybe we're the guests of the earth.
Yes, but how can we become guests of the Earth? And if we are guests of the Earth, that's I like it.
You like that idea?
Where does God fit in?
Well, maybe that's the challenge for us to somehow, within all the different traditions and beliefs, come to some sort of understanding within ourselves that how do we fit in? can we fit in better, and can we fit together in a stronger way? So for me, with the multi-faith work we do, the idea is to come together with listening and with deep respect and with peace, which creates understanding. We see that in the gatherings.
You're listening each other?
Very much,
in the faith. So that's the mission of the mixed
Yeah, I don't know
faith?
what to use the word mission. I want to use more the word the purpose and the drive behind what Rabbi Sheryl and I do is to create a safe gathering for people to come and share their personal story, and people listen. And like I said last night at the gathering, I want people to go away from this gathering going, that was great. That was just great. I learned something about myself and I learned something about you. And that's really what it's about for us and how we do it. And it's very Franciscan. Brother Francis said, you know, we're connected and part of everything. So let's just stop talking so much and let's just listen. All those beautiful birds around him.
So
he was listening to them all.
Brother Francis.
A street artist called Angelina was doing this doing a painting of Mary actually on the street 4 or 5 months ago. And I said, would you do a painting for me, I said, of St. Francis? And that's what she did. She gave it to me yesterday. And all these birds are from Western Australia. But the birds were all talking, and he even said to the birds, just be quiet. Just listen, because if you listen, you'll hear something. And that's what are we listening for? What are we going to hear?
So your gathering is sort of a mix of people who are listening each of our stories, each of the stories of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's your mission in that?
That's one of our vocations as brothers in the Fremantle area, is to create an opportunity for people to come together and listen. But remember, we do pastoral care. We're setting up a multi-faith retreat centre, hopefully in Denmark in the next 2 years. We're setting up a small community church in Fremantle. We visit people in the hospital. Well, that'll be in Fremantle, sort of somewhere. We're not quite sure where we're going to locate it, but at the heart of everything we do, it's to allow ourselves to allow others to be themselves. You don't have to change in this.
So as I hear that, and it's just my sort of labeling of your meetings and gatherings, so you are getting together to listen to each other's stories and telling each other's stories. So that's the mission, or are you doing more than that?
Yeah, that's our vocation. We would call that a vocation.
Yes.
So our religious vocation is to create an opportunity for people to share their tradition, and at the same time be present to helping people with housing, with food, just checking in at people who are in hospital, that they're safe, that they're well, that people can talk to us about any number of things. Yeah, that's what we do.
And you're working now not just in Fremantle, we're planning to extend your activities outside Fremantle.
We'd like to develop a multi-faith retreat centre down in the Denmark area in the next 2 years. We'd like to have a building down there where people can come together and rest. We can grow food and people can just quietly be with us. And we'd also like to develop a small centre in Northbridge where we can have our activities coming out to the people there as well. Yeah. So we have different programs around the area.
So how are you going to finance these programs?
Well, one of the things that I'm noticing now, being like I've been really doing this work in a looser way for the last 15 years, what we need to do is we need to pray and trust that people, when they meet me or they hear about what Rabbi Sheryl and I are doing or what our community, our volunteers are doing, that they help us out with clothing, with food.
Yes.
We're a very practical organisation too. Yet at the same time, we do need money to do things. And so I'm often, asking people for donations to us so that we can fund things or pay for things. And it could be a practical thing, like I had at the last one of the gatherings, we had an Aboriginal man. He came to the gathering, he gave a talk, but he said, I've got nowhere to sleep tonight. I said, look, let's book you into a youth hostel and let's organise breakfast for you. That's $40. So that $40 has to come from somewhere. you know, in order to give it to him so that he gets a sense that we appreciate what he does, but at the same time, he gets a bed to sleep in and a breakfast to eat. So what we do, it always must have a very practical aspect to it. Even the multi-faith gatherings need to be practical. You know.
So what you're doing is like a charity work, which
we've set up a charity.
Lots of other organizations are doing.
Yeah, many.
What is the difference, the main difference between your charity work and your organization from the others?
Well, I think the main perhaps there are many religious charities, both within any number of institutions and faiths. But coming back to our charity is based within the thoughts and understandings of what St. Francis himself defined for us. And he said there must always be a close walk with God within our own personal lives, but we also must be very practical with people around us. We must serve people. So we are a community of service to people. And I'm always saying that. That's our priority, is to serve, to listen, to serve, to be with those people who need us in that moment of needing us, whether it's marriage, a funeral, hospital visit, nursing home visit, pastoral care, all the things that are needed in a community. Are we very different to many other charities? There are great charities, even in Western Australia. You know, St. Patrick's is in Fremantle. It's a brilliant charity that needs to be looked after and cared for. Over 30 years it's been going with hundreds of volunteers. We are one more good work working alongside other good charities.
So if you can tell our audience, for the finishing of this interview, how many different faiths involved in the multi-faith gatherings at your organization?
We were doing that on the way here, Rabbi Sheryl and I, and we worked out, was it 23? We've had 23 different aspects of the traditions within the Christian, Islamic, Buddhist and Jewish and Hindu traditions. So we get, and we have had most of them. There are still some we haven't had, like we haven't had anybody from the Mormon community or anybody from the Latter-day Saints community, or we haven't had any Jehovah's Witnesses come. But we are getting lots of representation, and all the stories that come with it, of their own personal journey with God. Or
which one is the most interesting story you can share with us?
Oh, wow.
For finishing up this.
Yeah, gosh, I hear so many stories. You know, to be really honest, I've got to really say that I have a hope in my heart that every story I hear. And each story has its own deep beauty and significance. There isn't one story better than another story. All the stories are equally valuable and beautiful and important to hear.
Thank you, Brother Francis Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Seymour.
And now we have to go for a short break. And after the break, we're going to have Rabbi Sheryl with us to talk about something interesting. Hello and welcome back to One-on-One Shadowboxing Have Your Say. In our second half of this program, our guest in the studios of WTV is Rabbi or Rabba Sheryl. Hello and welcome.
Hello, hello. Shalom, shalom.
What's happening so when the United States build and the courts of the United States build and all these monumental Capitol hills and buildings and so on and so forth all around the country in different bits and pieces, they got the 10 Commandments always placed there. And now, somehow, and it was a separation of religion and state from the beginning, or that was the idea. Now, we get into the 21st century, and now we see the 10 Commandments sort of removed from those buildings. What's going on?
It was not mainstream for representations of what has commonly come to be known as the 10 Commandments to be plastered all over public institutions for most of the history of the United States. That
So
did
why
not
does that
happen for most of the history of the United States. Only in the last decades, when there's been efforts in some of the more conservative, more sort of Bible Belt areas of the United States to preserve a certain kind of approach, which is a fairly right-wing
Is it?
approach, were representations of these tablets put up in courtrooms, which led to tremendous controversy. And there's been pushback, and officially, legally, they are not to be displayed in courtrooms or other public institutions. It is not supposed to be happening. Because ultimately, the court systems decided that there must be maintained, that we must maintain a separation of church and state in the United States.
And now I got something in my hand, which is a finger pointer. So is it good to point a finger, or is it no-no?
This is an important part of our Jewish tradition. This is called a yad.
Yes.
And yad is simply the Hebrew word for hand. And a yad is used in our tradition when we're reading from our sacred scrolls. Like this is a scroll, a handwritten scroll, which contains in it the biblical book of Esther. This is handwritten by a scribe, a sofer, and we'll be reading from this scroll
Yes.
for our holiday of Purim, which is coming up in the middle of March, when we remember Esther's heroism. We also remember the cruelty and the discrimination and the hatred that some leaders were able to create, attempting to destroy, again, a minority culture. We use the yad to point to the words in our scroll so that we don't accidentally
Without
touch
touching.
the scroll, smear the letters,
But not
or
even touching
scrape
with
it.
the yad.
No, we just point the way. We point the way, and we
Of the
realize,
reading, yes.
Yeah, we point to the reading as we go. It's fairly mundane, although this one's very beautiful. We certainly have an idea that it is possible to point towards some things that are better in the world, to point out where there are opportunities for making a difference, to give food to the hungry, to give encouragement to those who are feeling hopeless, to give a smile, some kindness to somebody who needs it. I know it sounds trite, but where would we be without that? We'd lose our humanity.
I would like to ask you about your organization, the Jewish Spirituality Australia. What is that? Tell me.
Jewish Spirituality Australia is a group that aims to support people as they're interested in exploring Judaism, spirituality, and big questions. Many of these are big questions that are beyond the realm of merely Judaism, but about how we live. What's it about? What does it mean? What do we do with despair? What do we do with joy? What are our obligations, our opportunities? Jewish Spirituality Australia supports Jewish people in their exploration, in their discovery, in their questions, in their agnosticism sometimes, and also reaches out to build bridges between the Jewish community and other religious groups. We work closely with Brother Francis in the Multi-Faith Spirituality Exploration Group. That's
a nice name.
Well, Multi-Faith Spirituality Exploration Group is short for message.
Message.
Our
okay.
message is the more understanding, the more peace.
With their own conflicts in life, which is many, they got sometimes to be looked as if they forgot what it's happened to them because they're doing something according to some of the people involved in that fight with Israel, think they're just repeating what's been repeated against them.
I think that you might be referring to some of the complexities between Hamas and the existence of the State of Israel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would certainly be good for civilian sites not to be targeted. It will certainly be good for your listeners to hear about how much cooperation there is and has been for nearly a century between Arabs, Muslims, Jews, Israelis, who've been sharing this land for thousands of years. Go to Haifa, where the Baha'i temple is. See how beautifully everyone gets along. Go to businesses that are shared where there are olive oil companies that work jointly between Jews, Muslims, Arabs, Israeli citizens. Go to places like Wa'at Salam, Neve Shalom, which is a peace village where I've been able to stay, where half of the community is Arab, half of the community is Jewish, and we live together. In the school, Arabic and Hebrew is spoken, as well as English being taught.
Yes.
Muslim holidays, Christian holidays, Jewish holidays are all observed because there is such a commitment to living together.
Now we want to have God in here to sort of sort this out.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's about the hands again, because at least in our theology, in mainstream Judaism and theology, God doesn't come walking along and go zap like Zeus with a lightning bolt. And so the hands are, excuse me, where's yours? Yours, mine.
Yeah.
That's where the power of God works, through our hands and our backs and our words.
How can I learn Hebrew to read in 5 hours? Because if I can, I want to be part of that learning group.
Fantastic. When should we start? I am so on it. The first,
Anytime.
it's a riot.
Yes.
We use a kinesthetic approach with a lot of music and a lot of laughter. We sing the names of the letters, we play around with them, and it's amazing. It works. That's why we call it the Hebrew mini miracle. In only 5 hours.
That is a big miracle for me.
5 hours.
How many letters the Hebrew alphabet has?
We usually say it has about 22, but we have
22.
final forms, so it depends on how you count them.
So maybe 35 or something.
Not quite that many,
Yeah.
but Hebrew is gorgeous. So here's an example. This is a talit that a friend gave me for my 50th birthday. Thank you, Margaret. And Hebrew, of course, reads from right to left, unlike English, for example. We look at the unique forms of the letter. We say, here's a tet. It has a tear on top, so it makes the t sound. Here's a lamed. It looks like ch, 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 lightning striking. Taf has a big toe. So we quickly learn, because we use this fabulous song. Aleph is exceptional. Bet has a belly ball. Has a little ball inside of it. We learn
So
the
like
letters.
learning in
we
a kindi.
sing. It's like learning in kindi. Every letter, every vowel.
Beautiful.
It's
okay,
beautiful.
so I want to learn that. Definitely.
Even more beautiful is when we come to the Kabbalah.
Now, tell me about it. I know it's dangerous to go into Kabbalah because it's so guided and so secretive in a way. What is the secret of Kabbalah or Zohar?
The secret. You really want to know the secret?
Yes.
The secret is how you look at it.
Yes.
Zohar is like putting on lenses and seeing the world in a whole new way. When we get inside of Zohar, we're like swimming in this warm, wonderful sea with incredible creatures and possibilities, with these currents moving around us, lifting us like the waves move us. It's very symbolic, it's very beautiful, and it's delicious, like hot fudge. Yeah? The Kabbalah is more or less organized around the teachings within the Zohar.
Yes.
And the Zohar is more or less following the adventures of remarkable, very receptive, creative, passionate, very passionate rabbis as they wander through the Holy Land and discover in something perhaps as simple as a rose deeper meanings in Torah, in God, in themselves. They see what would seem to be mundane to you or me. How many fingers are on a hand pointing? What's the shape of a goblet or a cup? And they'll help us to look inside and see some kind of brightness we've never seen before. And indeed, when you look into the bottom of the cup, what do you see, Tibor?
not myself, but one version of my face.
There's a reflection of yourself. And when Zohar is working most beautifully, we find new reflections of ourselves and we find challenges to live as our highest self.
I would like to ask you just one thing to finish this off, this interview. If you can blow your trumpet for finishing, which is not a trumpet, of course.
It's not. Sometimes mistranslated as trumpet. There are many places in Christian Bibles that speak of the trumpet sounding, but the Hebrew most always is saying shofar or truah, referring to this ancient instrument, not quite a didgeridoo, but in a similar fashion, we'll move the air through it and hear what, according to Exodus, was the sound at Mount Sinai when those not 10 not commandments, but those foundational ideals of humanity seemed to have come into our human consciousness.
So let's hear it.
The sound of the shofar. Can you say tekiah? That means please sound the horn.
Tekiah. Thank you, Rabbi. And please come back next week, same time, same channel. One-on-one shadow boxing. Have your say.
Don't hate me. That's my fear.
You're just right, Sheryl.